Okie dokie. How are you all doing? How's it going? We're going to try to play with these circles. In perspective, I was running into some issues last time. I think I figured out the one line that was giving me problems. So before we talked about how we wanted to draw a cylinder, to do so placing basically two bricks on top of each other to get the basic shape first. Ooh, yeah. I mean, especially with you guys, investing in streaming and stuff. The better options you can get for your computer, the better, obviously. So hopefully you get something worked out there. As someone who was able to spend a bunch of income on a good computer, I can tell you there's nothing better. And I really hope that you get to a point where you can just buy a monstrous computer. Because yeah, when I had never even dreamed that this thing would be as good as it is. And this thing's just a beast. Yeah, obviously it's slowed a little bit since I put stuff on it, but when we first set it up, and it's still like 12 to 13 seconds or something. Yeah, I was just and then going into games that you've been playing on okay settings for a while, and just cranking them up to absolute ultra and getting 60 FPS, you're just like, Jesus. I'm gonna set this up again. In order to make sure I do this correctly, I'm actually going to use the template as well. Okay, so last time I ran into some issues with this, getting this done, but I noticed I read one thing here. So it says, please place one brick on top of the other. We're pretending these are two bricks. I didn't draw the center line. I'm not too worried about it. Draw cross lines at the end of each. Boom, boom, to find the center. The circle may be considered at the end of a cylinder that runs the length of the brick. Draw the other circle on the opposite end, which is going to be over here. Not too worried about that right now. The axle of the wheel is an extension of the small axis of the two ellipses and the stem of the T. The long axis forms the crossbar. So last time I did this, I ran into some issues where I wasn't bringing up right, and I think I figured out why on this page. Last time I was running into it, and I wasn't getting a right angle on that, which meant it was slightly out of perspective. But the long axis is apparently, we begin by assuming that the ends of the two bricks form a square when the bricks are placed one on top of each other. Sketch the bricks in perspective. The circle at the square end becomes an ellipse, touching the square in perspective at the center of each sides. A line drawn from the center of the circle to the vanishing point would be the center line of the cylinder or the axle of the two wheels. Commercial residential blocks that are in my downtown area. From there, I would set up affordable place to live for people where basically your only goal is to pay enough that I don't have to lose money on property taxes and the like. Otherwise, I would look to just break even on it, give people a good place to stay. If I got into the commercial or commercial residential building, I would set it up so that the businesses involved therein. Ooh, that is very nearly right. So I'm just a little off with my spacing, but that's correct. That's probably just because that's a little low, actually. Excellent. I did get that right, at least so far. If they paid a better wage, I would reduce the commercial rent that they pay as part of their lease. And then from there, I would take that money and I would invest in lots of online artists and creators. office so that we could afford a pet. And I'd probably keep my office here, actually, just because I could afford to and I really like it. But I would have room at home for another computer so that I could actually do something at home if I needed. Okay, so we got that. That circle's a little off, but I expect that. Then we need to find the longest point on the circle, which is always kind of weird to me because it's just like I wish there was a better way to determine what the longest point was. All right, so far we're looking good. A line through the same center intersecting this axle in line squarely would be the longest line or long. Okay, so. But it's like, I wish there was a better way to figure out what the longest line was, because when they're this close, it's hard to tell. So I guess with that, I could make it square with this to determine that, because that is how that works. So this needs to be a square right angle. Let's do it this way to figure that out. With this. So that should be almost the longest. It would be something like the long axis. Finding the long axis is kind of where I feel like it's pretty close to. I feel like I may need to look this up in other avenues and come back to it. Because like where it talked about the finding the long line through an ellipse, but it's like when it's this close, it's hard to tell what is the long line. So I'd like a way to determine that appropriately. I guess, technically it looks like it's half between the two sides. So it should be... No, that doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be that as the longest line, should it? If that's the case, this is all wrong. I guess actually here, this is where we're supposed to. I wish I had a better way to do a right angle, to figure out a right angle, because that's what we need to do here, I think, is instead of informing that, I need to inform this. So it would be like... So that's kind of it there. So the longest line should be something like in here. But yeah, I think in the end, I'm going to need to look up more on doing a different book on doing this in perspective. But that actually, so the other thing about this, so this actually looks like it is working properly. I just need to figure out a nice trick to do that, because then you use those longest lines to determine where the sphere is. And then if you come in here and you like erase this stuff here, you just get a sphere, or a cylinder rather, that if I drew perfect circles would be a perfect circle. So yeah, that actually worked out well. And then this longest line here has a right angle with that center axis. So it is correct. It's a little messy. Let's do another one of these. Okay. Let's do you. So we're going to set this up to be the base shape of the cylinder. Okay, so as we know, you can set up cubes and blocks to block out the cylinder. Let's go ahead and swap over to purple to get the exact center line. Now, Haku, in all honesty, if at any point you honestly have to like you honestly just like can't afford to deal with stream stuff, but you still feel you need to, you can let me know and I will like somehow stop you. Like, I honestly don't want you to be in a bad place over it. But while you're willing to be okay. I just like I don't want you to be in a bad place, but I definitely am not gonna shy away from you know, getting the assistance you are usually willing to provide. Okay, so that seems like that worked out well. Again, following along the same line as the vanishing point, but in this case, because it's up and down, that's basically 1 point perspective, and we're just going to do it from the center line there. Gotcha. So we're going to go ahead and draw these circles. Actually, first I'm going to go ahead and do this center line for each, because that will tell me where the circle, how the circle is formed. And this one's going to be super awkward, and I'm going to draw it terribly, because that is how we roll. And then where these points meet, that's where we draw our arcs between. I'm glad you got a backup to work off of, and you kind of honor that. That's very, very good for you. God, I need to practice doing freehand circles and stuff like this, which I feel like that. But that's not something you'll want to watch me do. You don't want to watch me draw circles over and over again until I'm done with circles. Okay, and then so in this case, because that was straight up and down, I can actually grab a 1 point perspective ruler and just come right off. Where was the center line? Okay. And then the center line would be there. So then to find the longest point, okay, so this is the center line, which passes through. Perfect. And now to make the longest line, we do a right angle from there, which in this case is directly across, because it's kind of 1 point perspective-y, which means that is there. And if I correctly had drawn that circle, that would be correct. But again, I need to figure out a better way for me to freehand these properly. Okay, so let's say we're going to make, again, framing stuff out. So to do a cylinder, you just want to do a rectangle. Use that to frame stuff out. Can't wait to get you fixed. If you're going to do a cylinder, just go ahead and make a rectangle. Yeah, I don't know how it is other places, but in general here, art school's generally pretty shitty. Occasionally you might get an art class or like a good art teacher, But in general, art school here is really shitty and really like tries its best to drum creativity out of people. It's pretty bad. All right, so you have this rectangle. To find that center point, we do the trick where you just do a cross line from each corner, and that's going to create the center line in perspective of whatever you're doing that with. So that is step 2. Then you're going to pop over here. I'm going to swap to a lightish red. We are in perspective here, so if you draw through that center line, you'll get the exact center lines squared through here and here. And so with this case, doing that, each of these panels, this panel here, and say this panel here, are the exact same size. They just look different, and this one looks a little bigger because it's in perspective. Same thing here, here, here. These are all identical. So from here, we have that center line now, so we can grab a perspective again. We'll go ahead and say this one will do like a light, like a blue there. And so just straight from this center line, we can do it across. Oh, I am not in my perspective ruler. Do it there. So I have confirmed that it's correct because those two line up. However, if I wanted to, and I didn't have a fancy perspective ruler, you could just trust that it's okay and do like whatever your shift line is in Photoshop or whatever. So that's the center line of the cylinder and the cube. And then technically a circle. And the last stream, I don't remember if you were here or not, the last stream we figured out a bunch of different ways to do circles, and they're all kind of weird, and I'm not exactly sure how we would apply some of those to perspectives exactly without being able to freehand a circle. But in general, we want to connect these in a circular way, which becomes kind of a pain in the ass for me in perspective. But that is less about perspective being a bitch and more about me freehanding circles being a bitch. But technically, these are all like where these lines meet here is where the circle is going to meet the edges of the cube to make this. And so that's the problem, is freehanding and figuring this out, is I don't know where in here this is in perspective. I know there are ways to check that, but not in this book. So I'm going to look that up, and I'll probably try to jump into that next time. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Where, like, basically there's a way where you can keep breaking these down into squares, and that gives you your points. It's very similar to the weird method it taught me last time, but I don't know how to do that weird method in perspective, just when it's kind of almost completely dead on. All right, so now you have these two circles. Where you find that, where you find the longest line of the circle is going to be at a right angle from this. So this probably won't be exactly perfect, but that looks pretty close to a 90-degree angle there. So I can go ahead and let's do it this way with a red line. I'm not a big fan of any traditional methods. Just a thingy, a dire thingy. Too messy. I don't like materials. That actually looks like it paid off pretty well. So using that 90-degree method, you find the longest lines there, and then that should just connect directly these spheres from there. Oh. Pretty good there. And then I whiffed it on this corner of the circle, but again, that's my inability to draw a circle in perspective properly, and not this exercise specifically, which should be something like that or whatever. So yeah, that is doing a cylinder in perspective. I'm getting it down a little bit better now. I will look up the extraneous resources and probably dip into that. Now we're going to do a cone on its side. For the most part, a cone is pretty easy based using what we did last time. We're going to draw a cone facing up into the air right now. So yeah, my plan, I have, you know, my emojis obviously going right now. I have some more pending, but at some point when I have the disposable income, I'm going to pay someone to redo those in a more crisp style for emotes, because it's just a very different animal entirely. Okay, so we do the same thing where we just pretend that a cylinder to start with, a 1/2 cylinder as the cone would be. I mean, I could do pixel because I do like pixel art, but I feel, I don't know, I don't like it for my emotes. I'm going to take another stab at it at some point, but so we're going to do just like we normally do for a cylinder, but we only need to do it on one side. We only do it on the side with the, you know, base, obviously, because we are talking about a cone. So then we go ahead and find that middle line again. So again, splitting up into halvesies like that, that makes this the same size as this, the same size as this, the same size as this. Bring you back. Let's go and grab purple. And then the... Oh, you're off. Oh, you know what? We should probably actually do this up here too. And the reason why we should find the center point up here is so that we know where to stop this up and down line, but we don't need to go much farther than that. So we know that that's going to be kind of in that area. We'll stop it there. And then we come down here to do that there, a circle, turn off. Again, freehand circle, so it's not going to be perfect. I feel like that should be more like that or something. We got this here, so we find that right angle, again with the right angle. So we say like that looks pretty 90 degrees-y, yeah. Go ahead and grab red. All right, I'm getting the hang of this. I'm going to grab that there. And say that is about the longest line. And so then we just take this and we say, okay, but yeah, so we got this here. So we wish to place the cone so that it rests on the flat surface. To do this, we tilt the surface up until it rests against the cone. The point of the cone is now on the black line. Now let's turn the whole arrangement so the surface is again level and the cone remains. Cone therefore may be thought of as a cylinder. So the problem here. All right. So here's the problem I have with the way this is suggesting I do this. If we're gonna say do the exact same thing again, build this like we've been showing the whole time. To build that. Alright, that's the length there. If we've been doing like, I'm just going to do this quick so we can get to what I was talking about here. Go mer, 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 mer. Alright, let's get like a right angle, which that looks pretty right angle-y. And then we take that and we go like that to do a very messy cylinder. The problem is if it's talking about how we want to tilt that up, it says like we just have to raise. So the cylinder first placed on the side using the black line as shown. So basically, here we go, black line, since that's what it says. So this is the center of that line, right? And it is technically the cylinder. Let's turn you off. And this cylinder like this. So now what it's saying is that we just take this, like if there was a square down here, like I had before, yada yada. And then we lift it up to here. It's like the cylinder's first placed on its side lying on the black line as shown. So that's like if we had a cylinder here. A cone is then made from the cylinder, which is what we have here, while it's in this position. If we wish to place the cone so that it rests on the flat surface, to do this we tilt the surface up until it rests against the cone. The point of the cone is now on the black line. Now let us turn this whole arrangement so that the surface is once again level and the cone remains resting upon it. So the problem I have there is this doesn't tell me how to draw it without doing this. This is the line I wanted to lay on. It doesn't actually give me a way to do this without actually using like the rotate tool to do that. Which I can do digitally if I need to. It does mess up some stuff. But I also feel like that's kind of a weird thing to do when this is mostly focused on traditional. So that's another thing that I'm probably going to play around with and look into. Now let us turn, a cone therefore may be thought of as a cylinder, one end of which has pressed half its diameter into the surface on which it rests. The cone is then made from this cylinder. And it's like, I see how you're doing it and I see why you're doing it. But it seems like it's just kind of a weird way to approach that. Did you see why I shifted it and where I shifted it to? We'll just go into that for now, and then I'm going to look into some more cylinder stuff later, perhaps, if I decide I need to while I'm working. We got about a half an hour left. We're going to go into drawing objects in perspective using ellipsis and blocks. Both. So in this case, we're going to be drawing a wagon. So to first create a wagon, we must go ahead and draw a couple blocks. This is going to be the bed of the wagon. Then to draw the wheels, and this is where it kind of gets pretty cool. You're actually just going to use a cube, a similar cube here. Of course, making it a perfect square would be helpful, and I don't know if I've done that, but that is okay, because we're getting concepts here, not perfection. Okay, in that case, I will carry through and do my headshot commission stream first, because that was my plan, and I have some stuff set up for it already. But that is completely understandable. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. You thinking of Elemental Spark? Yeah, and I don't even actually need that beyond this here. So we're going to say that that is it. Then we're going to set up some circles. For sure. I completely understand, yeah. Like I said, I'm 100% into the idea of you giving me money, but I'm never going to be like, oh, right, it's still in perspective. Never going to be like, how dare you not spend money on me? I also know that Bree is your first priority as far as streams go. Understandably so. So yeah, no worries. Again, this is because I did not make sure that these squares were in perspective. So one's kind of a rectangle-y. Okay, that was pretty close. Was pretty close. I'll give me that. Give me that. So then we're going to go through here. We're going to do the circle. I swear to God, I need to look up the method for doing that in perspective, tracing the line in perspective, because the inner-outer circle didn't really help. Method doesn't really help in this way, where it's like in a perspective, because it still requires you to draw both of those in an elliptical thing. Okay, so we're going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and take this. We're going to do this in perspective. And we can actually just do this like that, and then like that. And I can get rid of this. And we know that that looks like a right angle. 90 degrees. And then same thing here, we want to try to find that. Looks pretty 90 degree, so it's pretty close. And then so from there we're going to drop this back into here. So following that around, we would do something like, and we can, if we wanted to, we could bounce over here. We can do this to make sure we get this all proper scene. And then so we do the same thing here. And then we just turn these into actual wagon wheels in the picture. Again, perfect circles aren't perfect, but the idea is. So that would be how you would do something like that. And so then we can start building more advanced stuff here. What do we got here? We got 15 minutes? Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and start a new thing with that. No, I'm not. I'm just going to delete all these because I'm going to remake the... So then we can start to get a little more advanced in the construction and using circles in various ways. So we're going to do an old-fashioned automobile. And then haven't had a chance since then. All right, you know what I'm going to do here real quick? I'm going to go ahead and try to get these a little more square for this image. And so this is how you would do something like that. We're going to assume that this is a square. So we got here, then we're going to do here, and then it's like the fence posts. So that's the middle. And then this we got going out up here. So then this is like the fence posts here. We draw that center line, which we're going to need for the wheel anyway. And then we take this, and then we cut through. Oh. We do that. And we do that. Nope, that was the wrong one. There we go. Then we do that. Thank you. That was right around Christmas. It was pretty rough Christmas. So does everyone remember this? Does anyone need a refresher on why this is working for determining proportions? All right, so this is, each one of these is the same as one of these. So then I can go ahead and take this. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing weird stuff like I did last time, and like stuff would be out of sync. So then I can take these two here, and I know that these are the same square as that one, which makes it very helpful. We can do this, and this. That is odd. Switch you to red. Thumbs up here. What's going on here? Red, fine. Oh, don't pause on me like that. Red, fine. Red, fine. Oh, that's because this is a little low. I actually pulled it off of here. So I fucked it up anyway. But that's fine. That'll be a little closer. Just off by a little bit. It throws things all out of whack. Oh. That's also because I have a weird thing going on here. Oh, that worked out. Cool. Gotta go to the other PC and send font file to Nix. You don't want to lose any of that. Is that for your emote stuff? Ah, there we go. Claw. Okay, good enough for government work. So these are the wheelbases. Right, like that. Then we have some other stuff. Let's go ahead and do some layout here. I actually want to do it on a separate layer, young man. Layout stuff like this. Hey, don't go away. Then let's go ahead and grab y'all. Do this. To make sure that I get this figured out here. We'll do that there. So I got that figured out. So this is dead center and equilateral. That. Then to place these blocks here, I'm gonna not do it perfectly because we know how to do that now, and I'm not gonna worry about it. Do that. I could actually do it this way. Okay, I'll say a little space there, like maybe that inside there. So then we'll just go ahead and do one more una más up here. So then we're going to say that that is where we're going to put that one. We didn't get this exactly figured out, but I'm going to go ahead and say about there. We'll make it square, whether that's accurate or not, we'll get it. It's just rough. And then we got another one of these back here. Maybe we want to do a different color. Purple. This is putting together an old-fashioned automobile. That comes back there. Yep, about halfway. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, is that all? Okay, so that is the basic rundown of Magnus. What's up, nerd? You missed the giveaway. So you'll see how it kind of is going to be turning into a car here. Why are you... Oh, other direction. Haha, I know how cameras work. This is the shape we got right now. So we would turn... in this case, we're looking at the wheels and the light wells using the ellipses. So make that here and make that here. Center line where the circle will connect with the square. How dare you be elsewhere, sir? How's you doing? How's the Kickstarter going? Post the link. I think everyone here knows and has possibly already, if they're going to, but post the link anyway. There you are. Check out that Kickstarter. Magic soups and shit. Stew, I know. Stew, not soup. And so yeah, that's kind of constructing an automobile there. Oh, nice. Nice number. Nice. And so this would build up. It'd be like... We'd do like... wheel, and then we have like the bumper here, and so we do cutouts here. Might do like a little bit of a thingy here, which this has. If we're gonna do that, we would find that center line. Actually, we would do something like this. And then do like up a little bit like that. And then do like a thing like so. Something like that. But yeah, like most of these lines would be going off this way or this way, those vanishing points. And you see how you're kind of using these blocks and circles to build out in perspective. Same thing would happen right here for the tires. Oop. Something like that. And so we see how that all works out. We would know, again, so out of here, center line is there, which means we would take this and we would look and we'd try to make that right angle, which looks 90 there. So it would probably be something like that. So we would find the bottom of the other tire, which would be slightly in view here, right along there. So then here, we'll now draw an old-fashioned automobile. The general outline is made up of different shapes, blocks drawn in perspective relationship. Notice how the ellipses formed by the wheels have their long axes lying in one direction, while those of the lights lie in an entirely different direction. Long axis here. And then on the lights, because this light here has this guy here, we broke this out here and we said like, maybe there's about 90. So you'll see long line here for that, long line here for the light. Notice in both cases the long axis forms a T with the center line of the cylinder. We discover in drawing that a great many familiar objects are cylinders, are cooking utensils, chinaware, lamps, vases, bottles, canned goods, automobiles, and pencils all express some use of the cylinder. The following page shows a few examples of cylinders used in various ways. Okay, and then we will pick up the various use of cylinders, but we got like barrels and lampshades and bridge trellises, which we can all kind of see how that works out. The lampshade kind of becomes a half a cone in perspective, which we did earlier. I got a bunch of other upright cylinder options here, bottles and lamps and whatnot. Thank you so much. Love you guys.